blood drips onto a flower, and rows of severed heads are displayed under a cloudy sky. Another prisoner is about to be beheaded before the magistrate. The executioner raises his blade and swings it down swiftly at the prisoner's neck. Beheading someone in a single strike is nearly impossible. In most cases, the process requires several blows to completely sever the neck. The samurai swings his sword multiple times to cut off the prisoner's head. But against all expectations, the sword breaks, surprising both the watching magistrates and the executioner himself. Meanwhile, the unharmed, white-haired prisoner sighs and wonders why he can't seem to die. He has killed countless people by now and never really expected to live a long life. Soon after, the prisoner returns to his cell while a woman writes down the records of his life. The prisoner's name is Gabimaru, a shinobi born in Iwagakure village, who has studied only assassination techniques since he was a child. Many lose their lives during training, but the survivors develop superhuman bodies. The woman understands how breaking a sword blade with his neck is a simple task for someone like Gabimaru, noting that he didn't even have to use ninjutsu to protect himself. The woman asks if he can show her his ninjutsu, but Gabimaru refuses. The next day, the magistrate orders Gabimaru to be burned at the stake. Burning is typically a punishment for arson, and the scorching of flesh causes incredible pain while the heat causes muscles to contract, bending the body so severely that bones break. Sometimes, the person is killed beforehand as an act of mercy. A samurai tries to grant Gabimaru mercy before he is burned, but the spear breaks when they try to stab him. They proceed with the burning, and Gabimaru is engulfed by a massive flame, but after a while, he opens his eyes behind the fire. A still smoking Gabimaru is returned to his cell where he talks with the woman. He explains that he isn't even trying to resist and, if anything, he wants to die too. The woman urges him to continue his life story so she can continue her work and write it down. Gabimaru mentions that he was only told his parents were killed by the village chief when he was a child. He doesn't know why, nor does he feel anything about it. He also doesn't have dreams because shinobi have no great purpose. They just kill as they are told. As for why he was captured, it was because he tried to leave the village, and thus his allies betrayed him while on a mission, leading to his capture. The village chief probably ordered them to do it because they don't allow anyone to leave. The next day, Gabimaru is sentenced to be executed by bulls in the square. Bulls were brought in and then tied to his legs. This method not only rips a person's legs off but also tears them from the groin to the chest. A samurai begins to force the bulls to run, and the ropes attached to Gabimaru's legs are pulled tight. However, the bulls are tired and panting, and Gabimaru is still intact. The magistrate starts getting angry at all this humiliation. The woman approaches Gabimaru and mentions that despite his statement that he wants to be killed, she noticed he was still resisting. She then asks him why he wanted to leave his village. Gabimaru explained that he was the best in Iwagakure. He had the chief's respect and married his daughter. However, the daughter was a fool, a careless, naive girl who turned his life upside down, pestering him to remove his shoes when entering the house, to pray every day, and to give thanks after eating. He got fed up with her because he didn't want to lose his edge, which is why he asked to leave the village. The village chief agrees on one condition. He must carry out one last mission. After his capture, he realized it was a trap, and then he realized he was foolish to challenge the chief in the first place, so he gave up on life. Later that night, a samurai urges the woman not to get involved with Gabimaru for her own safety. He tells her that not only is Gabimaru a former shinobi of Iwagakure, but he is the legendary Gabimaru, the Hollow, a hollow man without tears or emotions, who killed 20 men when he was arrested. He also tells her that rumors say the shinobi of Iwagakure consume the elixir of life, an immortality medicine from Shinsenko. However, the woman simply points out that if he were truly a hollow man, why would he resist so fiercely that he killed 20 people? Meanwhile, Gabimaru thinks about what the woman said earlier. He realizes she was right. He is indeed resisting. When they tried to behead him, he reinforced his neck. He wonders why he doesn't just die when he has no more goals in life. When tomorrow came, Gabimaru was sentenced to be executed by being boiled in oil. The oil ignites at a temperature of over 370 degrees, so the oil cannot be kept boiling for long in earthenware pots. This doesn't matter, because everyone dies before that happens. But Gabimaru now walks away from the shattered pots, his body on fire and unharmed. He wonders why he seems to endure it. He shouldn't have any goals left in life. Meanwhile, the magistrate trembles with anger at another failed execution attempt. The woman closes the book she was writing in and tells the magistrate she has finished recording the events and is ready to start the next phase at any time. The next day, the magistrate leads a bound Gabimaru through a corridor. Gabimaru asks him what kind of execution awaits him this time. However, the magistrate smiles and tells him that this time he will finally be silenced. The door opens and what awaits Gabimaru inside is the woman, kneeling in the middle of the room. Gabimaru is confused, so the magistrate explains that the woman is not just an inspector. She is a sword tester sent from Edo. The executioner, Yamada Asaemon Sagari. Yamada Asaemon is the trade name for the Yamada clan who have served as sword testers and executioners for generations. They are master swordsmen capable of testing swords and beheading criminals with a single strike. Sagiri tells Gabimaru that the shogunate has tasked her with his execution. Gabimaru immediately expects his head to fly off and hesitates in fear. He realizes Sagiri is the real deal. He destroys the restraints binding his hands and moves away. The magistrate is terrified and immediately asks Sagiri to execute him quickly. In an instant, Sagiri is already behind Gabimaru with her sword raised high. She swings it at Gabimaru's neck, but Gabimaru dodges and moves away. She asks him why he moved, as he would have gotten his wish to die if he had stayed still. Meanwhile, Gabimaru clutches a bleeding wound on his neck. Sagiri attacks again, and Gabimaru jumps over her, wondering why his body doesn't seem to want to die. Sagiri then tells him that through her work, she has been present during the final moments of many people. She has learned to identify what people truly feel when they die. Some feign courage even before their death. Some beg for mercy, and some lie to themselves, claiming they have accepted death. She realizes there is a great emptiness inside Gabimaru, but he lied about one thing. He has a purpose in life. Gabimaru loves his wife. Her words cause Gabimaru's memories to flash before his eyes, of how he was truly happy with his wife. He quickly steals a sword from a guard and rushes to attack Sagiri. The swords clash even before the guard can react to his stolen sword. Sagiri tells Gabimaru that he couldn't die during his executions because of his feelings for his wife. He is only lying to himself that he has no more goals. Gabimaru yells at her to shut up, stating that she knows nothing about the world he lived in. He screams that he is hollow and attacks again, but in his mind, he remembers his wife telling him he is not hollow as she bandages his wound. He replies to his wife that the title suits him because he is used to horrible things. His wife hugs him and replies that it's not true, that he is kind, and he is the only one who wasn't repulsed by her face. In their village, men are soldiers while women bear children, and they are not allowed to live as human beings. Her father burned her face so she would give up trying to live as a normal woman. After the initial shock, he gets flustered and blushes. His wife laughs and points at his face, telling him that someone like him could never be hollow. Back in the present, the fight continues as Gabimaru insists that he is hollow and a monster without feelings. No matter how he tries, he can never become human. In the past, he earned money by killing people. His wife tried to hide it, but he saw that she was disappointed. That's why he decided to stop making a living by killing people, and they could live a quiet life. This is what his wife wanted, so he thought her father, the chief, would understand. Yet he was cast out by the chief. He is about to continue the attack, but Sagiri suddenly tells him there is a chance for him. She shows him a paper with an official pardon written on it. Not only are all charges dropped, but it also places him under the protection of the shogunate. With that, neither the magistrate's office nor the village's ninja can harm him and his wife. However, this comes with a condition. Gabimaru must go to the other side. This confuses Gabimaru, and he asks Sagiri if she wants him to die. Sagiri explains that there is a land teeming with fertility and joy, where there is no pain. This land is known as Shinsenko. Since ancient times, people have called it paradise, said to be far to the southwest, beyond the Ryukyu kingdom. And now, it has finally been found. It was filled with butterflies, and beautiful singing voices could be heard. It is also said that the elixir of immortality is in Shinsenko. The shogunate sent a search party there to get the elixir. However, only a boat full of flowers returned. When they examined the boat, they found that the flowers were growing in the samurai's bodies. 5 more expeditions were sent, but none returned. Instead of being afraid, the shogun declares that the land must be truly magical, and therefore the elixir of life must be there. He ordered that people who could be sacrificed be chosen for the next expedition, namely, criminals sentenced to death. Whoever returns with the elixir will be pardoned. Sagiri came there to look for potential candidates, someone with skill and a strong desire to live. She then tells Gabimaru that she heard his wife is still in Iowa waiting for him. Since the day he was captured, she has shut herself away and not spoken to anyone. She then explains to Gabimaru that traveling to a mysterious island with these death row criminals and competing with them for a pardon is the only way for him to be reunited with her. Will he risk it all for a life with his wife? But the magistrate speaks up and declares he will not allow Gabimaru to be pardoned. He orders his men surrounding the two to prepare to attack. Meanwhile, Gabimaru remembers his wife's face again. Tears fall from his face, and then he asks Sagiri if she still wants to see his fire jutsu. Suddenly, flames begin to rise from all over Gabimaru's body. After a while, Gabimaru sits on the unconscious bodies of the guards while Sagiri holds the magistrate. Gabimaru tells her he will do it. He will find the elixir of life. In the past, a storyteller on death row asked to be executed while telling a story. Sagiri's father, Yamada Asaemon Kichiji, agreed to his request. Even after he was beheaded, the storyteller finished his story. He didn't even realize he had been beheaded. The strike was perfect, painless, and emotionless. After watching that, Sagiri decided to follow in her father's footsteps. After her training, Sagiri successfully carried out her first execution, beheading the convict with a single strike. But afterward, she sees the ghosts of the dead clinging to her. Her elder tells her there is fear in her sword strike, and thus she makes the convicts die a painful death. Sagiri promised to improve her sword strike. The next time she executed someone, her elder told her to look at her blade and its reflection. She again saw the ghosts of the dead looking at her. Sagiri realized that her blade is heavy with fear, causing the convicts to suffer, which makes her blade even heavier. She still wonders how she can remove the doubt and fear from her heart, just like her father. At present, condemned criminals recruited by the Aceman gather before His Highness, Shogun Tokugawa Nariyoshi. The criminals start to riot, making the samurai anxious about what might happen. Meanwhile, Sagiri looks at the criminals and identifies them, ranging from thieves and serial killers to heinous murderers. The samurai captain begins to tell the criminals their mission: to travel to Shinsenko and return with the elixir of life. Whoever completes the mission first will receive an official pardon. Sagiri notices the criminals' mood changes instantly upon seeing the pardon. She observes that one of them, a serial killer, is excited for a chance to be free and go on a killing spree again. She wonders if she could kill someone without doubt or fear if she knew the person was truly evil. Meanwhile, she notices Gabimaru just yawning out of boredom. One of the female prisoners, Akunoichi, recognizes Gabimaru. She notes that he looks smaller and more miserable than the rumors say. He was also captured. Gabimaru apologizes for not meeting her expectations, while Sagiri herself admits she was wary of Gabimaru at first. But now he's so nonchalant it's like he's a different person. Is he like the other criminals or even more evil than them? She checks her blade but shivers when she imagines a ghost in its reflection. The samurai then describes the island the inmates will be heading to. However, the criminals start screaming and yelling again. This prompts the samurai captain to order the criminals to remove their masks. They then bring in something covered with a white cloth. They remove the white cloth, and underneath is a man with flowers and branches growing out of him. The samurai explains he is the only soldier who returned alive from a recent expedition. As they can see, he is no longer human. When he returned, there were lumps all over his body, which started to bloom the next day. About 60 other members of the expedition are still missing. They also have no idea what is happening on the island, considering the man before them is their only source of information. The criminals start yelling about not being told how dangerous the island. Meanwhile, one samurai insists that blooming into flowers would be a mystical blessing since it came from paradise. The criminals argue against him, and the samurai demands they be grateful for being given the chance to travel to paradise in the first place. One of the criminals, a young boy, asks how sure they are that the elixir is even there when they have no information from the island. The samurai captain replies that they can still withdraw from the expedition since participation is voluntary. A tattooed criminal accepts his offer and walks away from the gathering. But before he leaves, an executioner beheads him. The samurai captain further explains that they will be assigned monitors upon their arrival on the island. After all, they are all criminals on death row. Thus, Yamada Asaemon will accompany them as their monitors. If they act out, they will be beheaded on the spot. Naturally, if their monitor dies, whether by accident or murder, they will also be beheaded. If they return without a monitor, they will not be allowed on the boat. Gabimaru asks Sagiri if this is true, and she quickly confirms it. He calmly accepts this, making Sagiri wonder if he's brave or just stupid. The shogun then speaks, whispering something to the samurai captain. After receiving his instructions, the captain explains that before they land on the island, they must reduce their numbers. Not all of them will be able to land on the island because the ship's capacity and the number of available executioners are limited. The criminals are confused by what he means, but one of them speaks up slowly. The young man with scars was choking another criminal and reveals to them that the samurai just want them to kill each other. He smashes another's head with a rock and urges the others to act quickly or they'll be killed. The samurai chief agrees with his assessment, saying anyone who dies there was useless on the island anyway. However, he warns the criminals not to untie their hands. A chaotic brawl breaks out, with criminals breaking each other's necks, kicking each other, and bashing each other's heads with rocks. Sagiri watches the chaos while Gabimaru sits calmly in his spot. As the fight continues, more and more criminals die. The shogun enjoys the show, as he doesn't often see fights to the death in their time. Meanwhile, the samurai chief scorns the shogun because there's no point in watching the brawl with their hands tied. The criminals can't even fight properly. It's just a huge mess. The shogun then asks another samurai which of the criminals have red seals. These indicate criminals with exceptional skills that might even be superhuman. The samurai points them out one by one. The first is the blonde, scarred man who started the brawl. Despite his youth, he led a group of bandits. He is an exceptional man who created a bandit village deep in the mountains of Iyo. Next, the woman who recognized Gabimaru. She was involved in the invasion of Sagawa Castle. She is a kunoichi who restrained every warrior in the castle. Then, a skilled swordsman with long hair known as the Blade Dragon. Next, a huge man said to eat bears whole. Rumor has it that neither swords nor spears were effective against him. Among them, the most prominent is the living legend, Gabimaru the Hollow. However, when the samurai points to him, they are confused because he is just standing in the middle of the brawl without moving. On the sidelines, Aizen, Sagiri's senior, asks if she's feeling overwhelmed. Aizen points out to her that it will be even more brutal on the island, not just among the criminals, but she will also be vulnerable. When that happens, will she be able to kill? He then also tells her that she is not suited for their work. Sagiri is hurt, but cannot retort. Aizen asks her why she even bothered to carry a sword. A warrior's daughter should live quietly in her mansion and stay away from the fate of an executioner. Sagiri takes a deep breath and answers him that if she could, she would have. However, even when they were young, she already knew that everyone born into the Yamada clan earns their living through people's deaths, testing swords on corpses, beheading criminals, and making medicine from corpses is their future. Children chased her everywhere and threw stones at her, calling her the daughter of a neck chopper. She can try to turn a blind eye to it, but the truth is reflected in the blade. Back in the present, a group of criminals plans to escape the compound. They see Sagiri and decide to attack her and steal her sword, because she's a woman. Aizen steps in to kill them, but Sagiri stops him. Instead, she approaches them herself. She remembers how in the past, she couldn't escape the fate of an executioner, but she wouldn't accept it quietly either. Instead, she would find her own destiny. She readies her sword and prepares to attack. She feels her fear resurfacing, but she still beheads the criminals who attack her. She wonders why her fear keeps consuming her. But she suddenly hears Gabimaru telling her that killing people is never a good thing. Gabimaru is now addressing the shogun, asking if he can't come up with another way to choose who will go. They may be murderers, but not all of them killed because they wanted to. His guards get angry at him for addressing the shogun so casually. But Gabimaru repeats that not killing people if you don't have to is the most natural thing in the world. Meanwhile, the samurai chief orders a group of criminals to kill Gabimaru. If they succeed, they automatically get to join the expedition. The criminal happily accepts his offer and picks up a rock. Gabimaru tries to reason with them, but the criminal replies that he has no problem killing if it means he will survive. He throws the stone at Gabimaru, but Gabimaru just dodges it. With no choice, Gabimaru sighs and decides he will have to fight. The criminal asks him why, since Gabimaru doesn't want to kill anyone. But Gabimaru replies that he can't stand to die either. Just the thought of what he is about to endure weighs on his mind. Then he suddenly slices the criminal with his hands, tearing his throat. He subsequently attacks the convicts, killing each one with a kick to the head or with his teeth. A group of them try to rush him, but he easily jumps over them and kills them. Their fight leads them to the shore where Gabimaru continues to kill all his attackers, finishing the last one by piercing his chest with his hand. The shogun and the samurai are stunned by his prowess. It seems they now realize that the man bathing in blood before them is truly the Hollow of Legend. Meanwhile, Sagiri remembers how Gabimaru mentioned how killing weighs on him, which is exactly how all her kills weigh on her sword and are reflected on her blade. She wonders if what she needs isn't the strength to not fear killing, but the resolve to bear the burden of that fear and the lives she has taken. A tear falls down her cheek, prompting Aizen to ask if she is okay. He asks if the responsibility of killing Gabimaru might be too much for her, but she steels her resolve and promises to kill him. The samurai chief also announces that all remaining survivors will join the expedition. They are Tamiya, the Bandit King, the Twisted Cane, the Sword Dragon, Nurugai, the Hunter of 100 from Sanka, Harubo, the Killing Prayer, Gabimaru, the Hollow, the Runaway Shinobi, Bakiji of the Cannibal Courtesan, Yuzuriya of Keishu, the Kunoichi, Moromachiya, the Apostate, and Rokuro, the Giant of Bizen. Each of the 10 convicts will be accompanied by an Asaeman executioner. They will board a ship, travel to the undiscovered island, and find the elixir of life. They are going to paradise, to heaven, to Shinsenko. Even after being pierced by blades and his blood spilling on the ground, he remains standing in his spot. After watching this, Gabimaru can only conclude that their village chief, Iwagakure, is truly immortal. Apparently, it was because of a medicine he obtained long ago from a land across the sea. Back in the present, Gabimaru is now in another land across the sea. Gabimaru comments that based on Sagiri's expression, she doesn't believe the elixir of life exists. However, Gabimaru assures her it is real. He doesn't know if it's in this place, though. The two enter the forest full of beautiful flowers and towering trees. Seeing their beautiful surroundings, Sagiri comments that this place certainly makes one think the elixir of life might exist there. However, Gabimaru replies that it's too creepy for him. There is no rhyme or reason to the species and natural habitats of the plants growing there, which makes it unnatural for him. Not only that, they remember the flowers growing from the samurai's body. Gabimaru cuts the rope tying his hands, but Sagiri tells him he is not allowed to do that. Gabimaru argues that it's ridiculous for them to be expected to find the elixir with their hands tied. Sagiri insists it's not their choice. It's the shogun's orders. She cannot condone any attempt to break the rules. He instead points out that his tied hands aren't the only ridiculous thing about the expedition. They were only given 3 days worth of food and water, and their only guide is a drawing. It seems they aren't actually trying to find the elixir. Sagiri threatens Gabimaru with her sword and clarifies that she is not his ally. She is his executioner. It's not her problem if he fails to find the elixir. If he refuses to tie his hands, she will simply have to execute him. Gabimaru sighs and agrees to tie his hands again. Out of nowhere, a huge metal ball on a chain suddenly hits him, sending him flying. The ball then returns to the hands of another convict, the Twisted Cane. Sagiri is surprised because the Asaeman executioner, guarding the Twisted Cane, is standing right beside him. Twisted Cane boasts of his victory when Gabimaru suddenly wakes up again and cracks his neck back into place. Sagiri explains to him that Twisted Cane is a warrior monk who fell in love with weapons during his training. Rumor has it he stole over 100 weapons from other warriors. However, Gabimaru points out that his hands aren't tied. Sagiri asks Kisho why Kane's hands aren't tied. Kisho replies that Sagiri is the only one who is still as uptight as ever. They can just tie their hands on the return trip. He points out that Sagiri is the lowest ranked among the samurai because she is honest to a fault. Meanwhile, Kane speaks again, telling Gabimaru he is as bold and brave as the rumors say. He plans to test his weapons on him until his heart's content. After all, weapons only shine if they drink blood. He then pulls a large mace from his bag of weapons. Gabimaru argues that if they fight there, the others will get a head start on them. However, Kane retorts, that's exactly why he's doing it. They were given no leads to start with, so he plans to kill the other criminals first, and then take his time looking for the elixir, with Gabimaru as his first target. Kisho tells them they are free to kill each other if they want. They are only there to watch them. Sagiri agrees with him, so Gabimaru sighs and decides he must kill Twisted Cane. Kane rushes toward him, and Gabimaru prepares for a fight, but Sagiri suddenly calls out to him from behind. she orders him to tie his hands. With no choice, Gabimaru binds his hands while Kane attacks him with all sorts of weapons. Maces break on his head, hammers shatter on his side, and Kane tries to stab him with a spear. Uninjured, Gabimaru lets him attack and finishes tying his hands. Meanwhile, Kane also sees this as convenient since he can test all his weapons on him. Gabimaru starts to fight back, launching Kane into the air using the spear he tried to stab him with. All kinds of weapons fall from Kane, and Gabimaru kicks a spear to hit Twisted Kane. Kane falls to the ground. Sagiri is surprised that Gabimaru managed to defeat Kane in a single blow, but Kane slowly gets up, revealing that armor was sewn directly into his skin. After a few scenes, Gabimaru stands over Kane's body, which is riddled with all kinds of weapons. He then shows his tied hands to Sagiri and tells her they should go and start looking for the elixir. Meanwhile, Kisho draws his sword and cuts off Kane's head. He picks up the head and bids the two farewell. Gabimaru asks him if they don't need to fight, and Kisho clarifies that they are neither enemies nor allies. If the criminal they are in charge of dies, they simply take their head and go back. Sagiri tells him to be careful on his return journey, but Kisho replies that he considers himself lucky to be able to go home so quickly, unlike Sagiri who thinks she's safe just because Gabimaru's hands are tied. Kisho tells her he has already seen a lot. Just moments after they headed for the shore, some sought to reduce the competition before they even landed. Some planned to work together, and some pretended to work together. The criminals didn't follow society's rules in the first place. They will try to survive in whatever way suits them. Sagiri asks him if the criminals breaking the rules wouldn't void their pardon, but this just makes Kisho call her uptight again. For the samurai, the shogun's word is absolute, but what really matters are their priorities. The first priority is the elixir, and everything else comes after. The shogun would rather they break the rules to get the elixir than fail. He asks her if he should kill Gabimaru for her, but before he can draw his sword, Gabimaru stops him and tells him to stop wasting time joking around. He just wants to go back to his wife. Meanwhile, on the shore, the giant Rokuroda and his guards have reached the beach. Rokuroda suddenly attacks Aizen, forcing him to fight. However, his sword breaks on Rokuroda's skin. A few moments later, Rokuroda was already feeding on a dead samurai's corpse at his feet. Elsewhere, the king of thieves, Azachobe, kills the monk. The girl from Akajinu was killed by her guards. She was trying to seduce Moro and Yuzuriha, who tried to form an alliance. Both had their bodies pierced by swords. Kisho also tells Gabimaru that the shogun has probably contacted his old village, Iwagakure, and tells Sagiri that their mission will also likely decide their clan's next chief. After Kisho leaves, Sagiri realizes he was right. Even though they were traveling together, she still doesn't understand Gabimaru's true character. She was about to ask where they were going next when Gabimaru suddenly attacks her. In the past, Gabimaru's parents asked for permission to leave the village after they had a child. In response, the chief killed them and decided to raise their child, Gabimaru, as his own. He tells the child Gabimaru that feelings, even the love between a parent and child, make people weak. If he isn't strong, he can't protect those dear to him. Back in the present, Gabimaru remembers his wife's face and attacks Sagiri. She tries to tell him that he's breaking the rules, but Gabimaru replies that if the Iwagakure arrive on the island, everything will turn to ash. He must find the elixir before then, and Sagiri will only slow him down. He then attacks Sagiri again, who realizes she must carry out Gabimaru's execution, but for some reason, she hesitates. Meanwhile, Gabimaru also wonders why he can't kill Sagiri when he has had multiple chances to do so during their fight. He seems to be hesitating about something. He remembers his wife's words, telling him that it's normal not to want to kill someone, and asking him to listen to his emotions, because he is no longer his old self. True courage is being honest with your emotions. From then on, he experienced more emotions after meeting his wife. He even felt hatred when an enemy promised to get revenge on his wife, causing him to slaughter them mercilessly. He is about to kill Sagiri again, but his hand stops from slitting her throat. He wonders what this weakness is that has come over him. He succeeds in destroying Sagiri's swords with one of his blows, and begs her to die quietly because killing her will hurt him too. Sagiri laughs sarcastically and asks if he has any kind of feeling left. After a long battle, Gabimaru now sits on top of Sagiri's body, his weapon pointed directly at her throat. He declares that he has no feelings because he is Gabimaru the Hollow. He has killed so many people that he's sick of it now. Killing someone else doesn't make him feel anything. However, his hand trembles, and he can't steady his hands. The specter of the chief looming over his shoulders has been replaced by his wife's warm embrace. He wonders why he is still hesitating when he shouldn't feel anything. Sagiri looks at his face and realizes the expression he's wearing now is always the expression he wears when he has to kill, as if he's trying to endure something. She observes that the environment Gabimaru grew up in simply raised him wrong. He is not a hollow man who feels nothing. He is a human being who has emotions, and watching him allowed her to confront her own feelings. Gabimaru tears up and laments how weak he is now that he can't even kill a girl. However, Sagiri replies and tells him that this isn't weakness, it's the seed of strength. She believes that not running away from one's own feelings is strength. Gabimaru remembers how his wife said the same thing in the past. Sagiri sits up and tells him she will overlook his behavior this time. If he regrets his crimes, confronts his feelings, and struggles to reclaim his life, she wishes to see it through. Meanwhile, she also tells herself that she must confront her own feelings as well, so she can become stronger. In another part of the island, Tamiya Gantetsusai, the sword dragon, finds a group of scattered Buddha statues. He notices that a butterfly that landed and stung him on his arm has a human face. He remembers how flowers bloom from the corpses of the dead, so he quickly cuts off his stung hand. Large scorpions also begin to appear around him. On his guard, giant humanoid monsters start to wander around. Meanwhile, scorpions also appear around Gabimaru and Sagiri as they face a fish-headed monster known as a Soshin. Unrivaled in 8 provinces, Tamiya used to look for men stronger than him to fight. When he finally stopped, a lord asked him to become his officer. The lord was a great man who boasted of his great mansion. His family crest also made him a dragon, so Tamiya agreed to work for him. But during a drinking session, the lord tells him he may be called a dragon, but he can't slay a real one. Tamiya felt insulted by this, so he cut down the dragon on the lord's gate. Because of this, he was pursued by the lord's entire clan and sentenced to death. Once he receives a pardon, he will be cleared of all charges, and he then plans to train again so he can cleave the lord's entire mansion in half. The samurai accompanying him comments that he doesn't understand him, and Tamiya retorts that samurai are the weirdest for beheading people. The samurai, named Fuchi, replies that beheading isn't the only thing their clan does. They also test swords and produce medicines. They also dissect people so they can learn about the human body and help advance medicine. He draws his blade and points it at Tamiya, warning him that he won't allow them to be insulted, and the two enter the forest. There, Fuchi asks Tamiya what he's going to do. Tamiya explains that he will eliminate the competition, after which he can take his time looking for the elixir, and more importantly, he can use his sword as he pleases. He thought he would never get a chance to engage in exciting duels with strong individuals in this peaceful world again. Fuchi agrees with his plan and compares the mission to making insect poison. The longer you wait, the stronger the remaining poisonous insects, or convicts, in this case, will become. However, he wonders if this plan will bear fruit when not all the poisonous insects are present. If the shogun runs out of patience, they will send the next batch of insects. This is how they ended up in their current situation, where monsters start appearing one after another. Gabimaru wonders what kind of creature is standing before them now. It has a fish head but also wears prayer beads around its 6 arms. However, his instinct warns him that this being, whatever it is dangerous. The monster breaks the prayer beads on its arm and attacks Gabimaru with all 6 of its fists. Gabimaru jumps over them and kicks the fish head. The fish manages to grab him by his feet and throw him to the ground. He gets up again and remembers his chief's teachings. Shinobi rule number 5. Do not fight an unknown enemy. He wonders if he should just run or if he should bring Sagiri with him. The fish monster then wraps its tail around Gabimaru and swings him around. Gabimaru is thrown again, and Sagiri checks on his condition. Gabimaru sees his hand bleeding, so he tells Sagiri they have to run now. Unfortunately for them, giant, looming monsters with strange smiling faces begin to appear around them. They are trapped. Gabimaru activates his ninjutsu and starts attacking the monsters one by one. Sagiri is stunned by the supernatural sight she is seeing. She wonders if she is truly in paradise or a large monster slaps at her, but she manages to dodge it. An insect grabs her by the leg and the monster prepares to attack again. Gabimaru realizes the situation Sagiri is in, but tells himself he must focus on the enemies in front of him first. However, his body suddenly moves on its own and saves Sagiri from the monster. They are about to be attacked again, but another assailant kills the monster attacking them. a new convict arrives with 2 assamen following her. The convict introduces herself as Yuzuriha of Kishu. Gabimaru remembers his wife telling him that he should thank those who help him, so Gabimaru thanks Yuzuriha. He asks her why she helped them when they are supposed to be competitors. Yuzuriha approaches him and tells him he seems very trustworthy. He is still standing despite the amount of blood he has lost, and he even saved Sagiri earlier. Yuzuriha caresses Gabimaru's chest and tells him that she is very scared of this dangerous place, and will do anything he says as long as he protects her. Gabimaru grabs her arm and forces her to the ground, warning her that he cannot be seduced. Yuzuriha sits up and apologizes, but tells him that her offer to work together is genuine, as 5 people are safer than 3. Sagiri asks her why exactly she has 2 assamen with her, and one of them, an assamen named Genji, explains that he was assigned to watch Moro, but he died when he was tricked by Yuzuriha. He then considered that 1 executioner was insufficient to control her, so he decided to guard her as well. Gabimaru and Sagiri stare at him, certain that he has just been seduced by Yuzuriha. The other assamen introduces himself as Senta. Yuzuriha recounts that they encountered insects, monsters, and crazy statues on their way there. They know how dangerous this place island. Finding the elixir as soon as possible is important, but there is no point in blindly rushing and dying without a plan. Sagiri also shares that there is no problem with them working together as long as they agree on it. Yuzuriha reacts happily to her words and rushes to hug Gabimaru, who drops her to the ground again. Gabimaru tells her he cannot trust the kunoichi, but Yuzuriha smiles and suddenly pulls Gabimaru to the ground as well. She then tells him that there is no trust. They can betray each other at any time. Even if they find the elixir, only one of them will be pardoned. She suggests they just use each other for as long as possible. Gabimaru jumps away and Yuzuriha returns with a cute expression, begging Gabimaru to join her. She offers her information in exchange for Gabimaru's strength. For example, they seem to think the monsters are a threat, but the real danger is actually the insects. The butterflies with human faces fly around the monsters, but their nests and behaviors are unknown. Their scales seem to contain hallucinogens and poison. Gabimaru curiously asks her how she knew all this, and Yuzuriha explains that she got close to Moro and talked to him about it. She tested all of this on him. The centipedes are disgusting, but can be safely ignored. They only eat dead flesh. There are other insects as well, but they only attack if you get close to them. Gabimaru asks what ultimately happened to Moro, and Yuzuriha admits she had him trick his guard by feigning death and then killed him. Senta also shares that many of the items worn by the monsters feature Buddhist or Taoist designs. Buddhism and Taoism are different religious traditions, so it's strange to see them mixed together. The Buddhist statues are also strange. He suspects they are truly in paradise. Sagiri agrees with him. Although the monsters look fantastical, their anatomy and muscles seem like those of living creatures. Gabimaru asks Yuzuriha why she seems willing to reveal so much. Is she that desperate to survive? Yuzuriha suddenly becomes sad and reveals that she has a younger sister. She suffers from a terminal illness, but they cannot afford any medicine. She became a kunoichi to earn money. She endured hellish training. But one day, the village chief told her she couldn't do something and then betrayed her. Gabimaru tells her that if she's lying, she should shorten her story. Yuzuriha realizes she's been found out and tells him she doesn't need a reason to want to survive. She just doesn't want to die while she's still young. Gabimaru has one last question for Yuzuriha and asks her what she actually did to Moro. Yuzuriha remembers how she left Moro with flowers growing out of him, but she replies to Gabimaru that she did nothing to him. He then finally agrees to join them, as long as he gets information. As long as they are simply fighting together and not fully cooperating. Yuzuriha happily hugs him and thanks him, but Gabimaru drops her to the ground again, reminding her that he is married. Meanwhile, Sagiri, who was watching them, slowly feels drowsy. She reflects on her performance since arriving on the island. She lost her balance against the monsters earlier and feels very weak. Then she faints on the ground. Recently, a young man named Tama became an agent for the Yamada clan. Within a month of joining, he successfully demonstrated his sword skills, and his instructor, Aizen, tells him he just needs to execute a criminal and his name will be added to their ranks. Aizen wonders which criminals he should execute, but Tama speaks up and tells him he has a suggestion. Later, Tama walks past rows of prison cells and greets one of them, the bandit King Aza. He tells him he came to save his older brother. He He infiltrated the Yamada clan and achieved a high rank within just 1 month to save him. Aza also shares that he endured a month of torture at their hands. Aza asks him how they will get out, as the magistrate's men will not give up easily. Tama smiles and informs him that there is indeed a way to make them stop chasing them. He then reveals the pardon they can obtain upon completing the shogun's mission. In the present, Tama has become Aza's designated executioner. The two face their own set of monsters. Aza happily attacks the monster while Tama praises his brother's quick reaction to situations. He has always been like this, even when the Lord, his father served, committed an atrocity that caused their plan to be dissolved. Even when their mother died while they lived in poverty. Even when their father was executed for avenging his master. Even when they were attacked by thieves, he immediately reacts to the situation and ends up controlling it. He became the bandit king until the day the police surrounded them. Then Aza ordered Toma to escape and save him later. Aza's blade breaks after fighting against a few monsters. However, more are coming. So he tells his brother they will sneak past. They run and pass the monsters in their way. Unfortunately, one manages to grab Tama by his hair. He reaches out to his brother, who stops and looks at him but continues to run away. Toma realizes this is also the reason for his brother's strength. He attacks the monster, holding his hair, and declares they will not get past him. The monster standing in front of him suddenly explodes as Aza returns, now wielding their own weapons against them. Aza thanks Tama for giving him enough time to pick up a weapon out of nowhere. A spear suddenly passes by his cheek and hits him, and the monster speaks, telling them that killing is a sin. The monsters begin to talk and surround them while the brothers are stunned by this sudden development. Tama trembles in fear and wonders if they are not in heaven. But in Aza remembers how his whole life seems to be affected by who is wrong and who commits a crime. He screams that he no longer cares and starts to rampage, killing all the monsters with his huge axe. He declares that he will do what he wants to do. Tama watches his brother, standing on a pile of corpses, and appreciates how truly strong his brother island. He remembers how Tama used to cry when they were children because they no longer knew what to do. But his brother calmed him down and told him he could just follow him. And so, Aza tells Toma their plan. They will kill every monster and criminal on the island. Then they can drink the elixir themselves. Even death will not tell them how to live elsewhere. Sagari is carried by her teammates as they walk to the farthest part of the island. Sagari dreams of her father looking at her with disappointment. She tries to ask him why, but she only wakes up. Genji greets her and explains that she is currently in a cave on the island, poisoned by the butterfly scales and unconscious. Sagari stands up and Genji tries to warn her not to move, because she is not well yet. However, she replies that she cannot do that because she must always keep her eyes on her prisoner outside. She is surprised to see the others sitting as if they were camping. She asks them what they are doing, and Gabimaru explains that he is preparing dinner. Senta is mending their torn clothes, and Yuzuriya is lying in a hammock, supervising them. Now that Sagiri is awake, Senta suggests they review what they know together. They can eat the food Gabimaru prepared while they talk. Yuzuriha gets angry when she sees the food, pointing out that it was Keketsugen, a form of ninja ration. Gabimaru explains that he made them using things in the area while he was gathering ingredients. He has also explored the entire island. Unfortunately, he did not see anything promising in the area that might look like the drawing of the elixir of life. Yuzuriha asks him if he knows anything about the elixir of life, and Gabimaru's mind goes back to their immortal village chief. He decides to keep that information to himself and answers the others that it's the first time he has heard of it. Gabimaru then continues to explain that while gathering ingredients, he learned about the various plants. The species are mixed, but they are mostly common plants found on the mainland. What caught his attention was that he found several flowers that looked like the samurai who had become flowers. So where did the other samurai who were sent end up? He assumes that most of the plants on that island they see now were those humans. The horrific news dampens the group's spirits, and Yuzuriya throws the food she was eating at Gabimaru. Gabimaru points out that he did not use those flowers to make those foods. In any case, he did not find anything that looked like the drawing of the tangerine fruit they were given. Senta suggests they not focus on the drawing too much. The terms elixir of life and paradise used by the shogun were originally concepts from different cultures. The statues scattered throughout the island are very similar to Buddhist figures. Worrying about religious consistency might be a waste of time. What they should focus on are the statues themselves. Does the technology to create stone statues exist on the island? If so, who made them? Do they live here? Sagiri's opinion is that the island is too dangerous for people to live on. The behavior and environment of the monsters and insects are mysterious. When she cut them, she felt like they had flesh and bone but no organs. Their appearance is also strange, with parts of other animals stacked on top of human forms. Senta also noted that the items worn by the monsters look poorly made as well. In other words, they're like deformed giants. They're scary but also dumb. Gabimaru shares that creatures that can live without organs point to immortality, then shows them that the elixir might actually be on the island. Senta agrees, saying their only clue about the elixir is the monsters themselves. Later, Genji advises Sagiri to take a boat back to the mainland. He can take responsibility for her since his own criminal is dead. He points out that Sagiri is first the daughter of the Yamada clan, and second a woman, whose duty is to marry the next clan head. In her current state, she'll die on the island. Does she have the strength to kill Gabimaru? And where is her sword? She's using someone else's, not her own. Sagiri remembers how her own sword broke while fighting Gabimaru. Genji tells her the sword is a warrior's heart, and she has already lost the heart of the Yamada clan. Senta joins in, asking if they can really go back so easily when the samurai sent before them never returned, even by boat. He's not sure they can escape. Meanwhile, a guard named Tenza tries to escape the island by boat with his criminal, Nurugai of the Sanka. Nurugai doubts they can leave because the currents are against them. Even if they escape, he'll be executed for failing to get the elixir. Tenza promises to speak to the shogun on his behalf. He vows to take him home since, out of all the criminals, Nurugai deserves to live the most. Just then, they finally see a large ship on the horizon. Tenza is excited, but as they get closer, they see it's actually the wreckage of all the ships that came before them. Then they see mysterious creatures lurking around the shipwreck. Tenza draws his sword to defend them. Nurugai scolds him because most animals are sensitive to shiny things and hostility. But it's too late. A large claw attacks, destroying their boat and leaving them stranded on the wreckage. More claws start appearing around them, and they have to run while Tenza cuts down any claw that gets close. Nurugai remembers his grandfather's words to run because he is the last of the Sanka lineage. He wonders if his current situation is punishment for his actions. In the past, Nurugai offered to help a group of samurai who were lost in their mountains. The samurai instead asked if he was part of the emishi and if they could rest in their village. However, the samurai instead slaughtered their entire village. It turns out, emishi is a term for those who refuse to submit to the shogun and live as unique cultures in the mountains. Under the current shogun, they are considered rebels. After killing everyone, they captured Nurugai, hoping to torture him for the locations of other villages. Tenza found him in prison. He didn't understand how an innocent boy could be executed, so he offered him the mission to join the expedition instead. Back in the present among the wreckage, they are shocked to find another guard, Kisho, who left after his charge was killed by Gabimaru. Flowers are now growing all over Kisho. Tenza wants to help him, but it was a trap set by the clawed monster. Seeing Kisho's dead body, Nurugai falls to his knees and tells Tenza to escape without him. He has accepted his current situation as punishment for getting his village killed. Tenza fights the claw monster while trying to convince Nurugai to move. He tells him he doesn't care about the village or his grandfather. What he wants to know is if Nurugai wants to die. Nurugai tears up as he remembers his grandfather and admits he just wants to live and go back to the mountains. Tenza passes him a sword and tells him they must do whatever it takes to survive. He points to a usable boat in the distance and tells him they have to get there. After a long and difficult escape, the two limp to shore, injured and leaning on each other. They rest on the beach and consider what to do next. Nurugai notices that the currents in the area probably all flow back to the island. Unless they find a current leading out, they won't be able to return even with the elixir. The monsters are also different from the ones on the island. Tenza tells Nurugai that since the boats carrying the flower-turned samurai returned, there must be a current leading out. While washing up, Tenza notices Nurugai's physique looks feminine. Nurugai asks what he's talking about when she's obviously a girl. Tenza panics, while Nurugai teases him and asks him to marry her. Meanwhile, Sagiri's conversation with Genji ends. Genji advises her to leave, while Senta partially agrees. He also wants Sagiri around in case Gabimaru needs to be stopped. He's noticed Gabimaru seems different now than when they left, even saving Sagiri. Sagiri thinks about it and remembers how Gabimaru has helped her several times. Later that night, Sagiri goes to talk with a watchful Gabimaru. Gabimaru asks how she's feeling, as he thinks the insect poison worked so fast because of the wound he gave her during their fight. Not only that, but he thanks her for calming him down. Being hasty and random is a risk, and if Iwagakure is coming, he has to prepare a counter-attack. Sagiri is surprised by his resolve and tells him he's strong, yet Gabimaru points out that she's stronger. He doesn't know if it's a difficult technique or strength, but she seems powerful to him. The next morning, Genji asks Sagiri if she's ready to leave, but Sagiri tells him she won't. People mock a woman who carries a sword. Not only that, but her father sometimes looked at her with disappointment. They all want her to live as a woman, but if she lives as the daughter of Asaemon the Decapitator, she'll be despised by outsiders. If she lives as a warrior of the Yamada clan, she'll be shunned by her family. She can't stand to be seen as just a woman. She kneels and asks Genji to see her as a samurai and let her live her own way. Genji smiles and replies that this is not the way of the samurai. The island is a battlefield, not a place for women and children. He attacks Sagiri with his sword, but to his surprise, Sagiri easily disarms him. Genji scolds her and takes his sword back. However, they are interrupted by a looming shadow standing behind Genji. It was Rokuroda. Genji quickly pushes Sagiri away and readies his sword, but Rokuroda was faster and slashed him, cutting a part of his stomach. When Rokuroda was a child, he ate a lot of food while his parents watched happily. After a snack, it's playtime where he stacks some rocks, but after a few scenes, his parents appear drenched in blood. In the present, Rokuroda's attack sends Genji flying through the forest and crashing into a tree. Sagiri quickly runs to him and kneels by his side. She tells him he needs immediate medical attention, but Genji weakly tells her she must escape. It's too late for him. When she looked back, Rokuroda was already above her, about to grab her. Luckily, Gabimaru appears and sends Rokuroda flying away with a kick to the face. Gabimaru asks who the enemy is because he was practically unharmed despite his attack. Sagiri explains that it's Rokuroda, the giant of Bizen. Aizen was supposed to be his guard. Gabimaru recognizes that Rokuroda's eyes are like a predator's that has locked onto its prey. He knows it will be hard for them to escape together, so he pulls up his mask and prepares to fight. He wonders how he should destroy Rokuroda when his previous kick was ineffective. Meanwhile, Rokuroda rips a tree from its roots and throws the whole thing at Gabimaru. Gabimaru jumps over it, while Sagiri covers the injured Genji. Gabimaru knows he is physically outmatched. He calls out to Yuzuriha, who was sitting on a nearby tree, and asks how long she plans to sit and watch. He begs her to fight with him just as she promised. However, Yuzuriha laughs and reminds him their agreement was for her to gather information while he handles the fighting. She starts cheering for Gabimaru, with no intention of helping. The fight continues with Rokuroda swinging his giant hands at Gabimaru. Gabimaru dodges the attacks and realizes Rokuroda's attacks and reactions are fast. He can instinctively feel that it's impossible to defend against those fists. Touching them would mean instant death. He decides to make it a long-range battle by stamping his foot on the ground, and then throwing the broken rocks at Rokuroda. Despite the rocks destroying and making holes in the trees behind Rokuroda, the man himself is still unharmed. Gabimaru concludes that projectiles are useless, so he pulls out his cloth belt and uses his bodiless blade. Ninjutsu, but even his bodiless blade, which is compared to steel, cannot cut Rokuroda's skin. He goes through a list of his ninjutsu, but all of them seem ineffective against the giant. Meanwhile, Sagiri tries to give Genji first aid by wrapping his wound with bandages. However, the blood stains the bandage and Genji tells her it's no use. She should just run. Sagiri stubbornly refuses, telling Genji he can survive if they can stop the bleeding. Genji tells Sagiri she's a strange person. Moments ago she was swaggering like a man, but now he can feel a woman's affection in her. Sagiri cries that there is no man or woman now. Genji smiles at her words and finally understands Sagiri's mind. Instead of dividing everything into two like man or woman, strong or weak, she accepts opposing concepts as part of herself. Her conviction is the middle path. Genji offers his sword and reminds her that a warrior's sword is their soul. Rokuroda may have already killed Aizen. If she is a samurai, Genji will no longer ask her to run, but will beg her to kill Rokuroda. Sagiri then accepts his sword. Meanwhile, Gabimaru is still analyzing his opponent. Close combat is too dangerous, but projectiles are ineffective. If he had the chance to use his ascetic's blaze, ninjutsu, he might have a fighting chance, but Rokuroda would crush him like a bug if he got close. If it were 2-on-1, he could find a blind spot. Suddenly, Rokuroda screams in pain as his little finger is cut off. Sagiri has arrived and tells Gabimaru that if someone inserts their blade at the intersection of stretched muscles, tendons, and bones, even the strongest bodies can be cut. Understand the opponent's body structure and strike in the gaps. This is the Yamada-style Tameshi Ito. Ryu. She brandishes her sword and joins Gabimaru. Senta, who was watching the scene with Yuzuriha, declares he wants to go treat his colleague, Genji's wound. However, Yuzuriha points out that it's already too late for Genji. More importantly, no monsters have approached despite the noise they're making. As such, it would be better to observe them. Sagiri notices that Rokuroda has already stopped the bleeding from his finger, which makes Gabimaru conclude they need a one-hit kill if they want to win. They must aim for the gaps between his bones and cut off his head. The only problem is that Rokuroda's neck is too high, so they need to split up. Gabimaru suggests that Sagiri cut Rokuroda's legs from his blind spot and make him kneel. Meanwhile, he will handle Rokuroda's attacks. The next time Rokuroda attacks them, Gabimaru parries his fist with his kicks, while Sagiri rushes to his back. Her master Aizen's face flashes in her mind, and she angrily strikes at Rokuroda's legs. To her surprise, her blade doesn't cut through his legs. She backs away as Rokuroda swings his arm toward her. Gabimaru asks if she's okay, and Sagiri notes that if she attacks too forcefully, just like before, it will backfire. She needs to stay calm, push her feelings aside, and use only logic. They go over their plan again. As soon as Rokuroda attacks, Gabimaru dodges his attacks when he notices his leg has been injured. He must have strained it while dodging Rokuroda's blows earlier. Meanwhile, Sagiri attacks again while trying to remain calm, but her blade still bounces off Rokuroda's arm. She tells Gabimaru that cutting Rokuroda's bones while he's rampaging will be difficult. Rokuroda's movements close the gaps between his bones, leaving no space for her blade to penetrate his body. Decapitations are usually performed on people who bow their heads, so killing Rokuroda in one blow would require him to bend over. They're thinking about what their next attack will be when they suddenly hear Rokuroda's stomach rumble. Then, Rokuroda suddenly starts crying so loudly that everyone nearby has to cover their ears. This distracts Gabimaru enough that he doesn't notice Rokuroda's next attack and gets hit full force, crashing to the ground. Gabimaru stands up from the rubble. He managed to withstand the attack, but he starts vomiting a large amount of blood and falls to his knees. Rokuroda attacks the injured Gabimaru again, forcing Sagiri to jump in front of him. She remembers Genji's words about her conviction being the middle way and realizes that instead of rejecting her emotion and using only her logic, she can simply accept both opposing concepts as they are. This allows her to calm herself and parry Rokuroda's attack with her sword. She turns her feelings into strength but uses logic to stay on target the middle way. Gabimaru's eyes widen at the sight of Sagiri's strength. Senta, who was watching the fight, also comments that Sagiri's rank is normally 12, but their clan's ranking isn't determined by pure skill alone. They are assigned according to their suitability to lead the clan, so Sagiri lost her rank simply for being a woman. In terms of pure skill, her swordsmanship is better than the first ranked. Genji also notes that Sagiri may be afraid of the island's monsters, but like an executioner facing a criminal, she shows no fear. Sagiri continues to parry Rokuroda's attack, until Rokuroda accidentally stumbles on the soft ground. Sagiri quickly uses the opportunity to get behind him and cut his neck. However, Rokuroda jumps into the air and flips back before she can. Fortunately, Gabimaru has a new idea on how to keep Rokuroda's head down. Although his idea might be a bit extreme, Gabimaru realizes their only option to defeat Rokuroda is to behead him, but doing so requires more than exceptional physical abilities. It needs the skills of the Yamada clan, a clan specializing in beheading. Gabimaru steps forward and activates his ninjutsu again, wrapping his body in flames. Seeing this new development, Yuzuriha quickly stands up and tells Senta they need to fall back. Gabimaru starts attacking Rokuroda again with stone projectiles, but this time, he's wrapped them in fire. Rokuroda parries them, scattering them all over the battlefield. He also shoots a fireball directly at Rokuroda, who parries it, sending it into a nearby tree. Gabimaru continues his assault with fire attacks that then scatter everywhere. Sagiri then tells him that should be enough and that anything more would be reckless. The flames have now started to spread, and Yuzuriha tries to escape the blazing inferno. She tells Senta that Gabimaru isn't just trying to kill Rokuroda now. He's planning to set the whole area on fire. They then plan to use the smoke produced by the oils in the raw wood by setting fire to the branches and leaves. They can instantly fill the upper area with smoke, and if Rokuroda continues his crying rampage, he will run out of oxygen and inhale a large amount of smoke. The poison in the smoke will then cause him to lose consciousness. In other words, the carbon monoxide in the smoke will combine with the hemoglobin in the blood, causing the entire body to quickly reach a state of hypoxia. Gabimaru also suggests Sagiri stay crouched so she doesn't inhale the smoke. When Rokuroda finally falls to his knees, vomiting and coughing from the smoke, Sagiri stands over him with her sword raised. He tries to slap her away, but his hand is stopped and held by Gabimaru. He yells at Sagiri to cut Rokuroda's neck now because he won't last long in a contest of strength. Sagiri calmly observes Rokuroda's neck and identifies the gap between his bones. She then inhales and, in one swift motion, brings her sword down on Rokuroda's neck. Before he dies, Rokuroda's life flashes before his eyes. He was just a big, hungry boy who destroyed everything he touched because of his immense strength. Once, when he was hungry, he accidentally slapped his parents and killed them instantly. He could never understand why he was always hungry or why no one wanted to play with him. Sagiri apologizes to Rokuroda for scaring him and letting him go on a rampage. She understands that Rokuroda is just misunderstood and gently caresses his cheeks. She then closes the eyes of his severed head and wishes for him to rest in peace. Meanwhile, Gabimaru tells her they should go now because the flames are getting stronger and might attract monsters in the area. Sagiri takes one last look at Genji and runs away with Gabimaru. Memories of her training and being taught by Genji flash in her mind. Later, when they are far from the fire, Gabimaru and Sagiri hide in the bushes and watch monsters wandering and heading toward the flames. This confuses them because animals usually avoid fire instinctively. Gabimaru sighs and suggests they head in the direction the monsters came from. It might be dangerous, but they have no choice. The monster's habitat is their only clue to the elixir. Gabimaru also asks her if she isn't worried about the safety of her fellow executioners, but Sagiri states that all of them accepted this mission, knowing it could kill them, so it would be disrespectful to be overly concerned about them. If she's truly worried, she should just find the elixir so they can all finish the mission. As they head deeper into the forest, they see the silhouette of Yuzuriha and Senta. Gabimaru was about to scold them for not helping when he finally saw what they were looking at. It was the remains of a village. Senta comments that if this place is truly Shinsenko, then Tenzin would likely be living in that village. In another part of the forest, Aza and Tama kill their fair share of monsters. Aza drinks the monster's blood to replenish his energy, while Tama asks about the Tenzin he was talking about earlier. Tama explains that Tenzin are a type of superhuman being, according to Teia's philosophy. They are like most old men who cast mysterious spells and are allegedly immortal. They were supposed to be the ones living in Shinsenko, not the monsters they are fighting now. Aza then senses someone approaching them, and when they go to take a look, they see two people sitting and eating on top of a pile of rubble.